Chapter 12, and this is the last chapter that we'll be previewing before the book is released on the 2nd of November 2024. This chapter's called An Anonymous Note. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was visiting his sister Connie for Christmas in Edinburgh. It had been his wife Jean's idea. He had been so engrossed that year in writing his latest book, Round the Fire Stories, a new collection of diabolical and thrilling tales, that Jean felt neglected his family. Now that the collection was published, she wanted them to spend some time together. "Christmas is, after all, a time for family, my dearest," Jean had said in that sweet and charming manner which always warmed his heart, making him agree to anything she wanted. They had arrived in Edinburgh only 2 days ago, and already he was bored. But that was about to change when Sir Arthur was sorting a pile of unopened Christmas cards and discovered a mysterious, anonymous note which read, "Come to the Panopticon in Glasgow and seek out a gang of boys in the basement zoo. The game's afoot." What did it mean? What could a gang of boys in Glasgow possibly possess that would be of interest to him? And how had the sender known he would be in Edinburgh? These were all intriguing thoughts, but what fascinated him most was the handwriting. The slope of the letters, the shape and flow of them. It seemed was impossible, but the letter was written in a hand identical to his own. Arthur could never resist a mystery, especially when he was bored. He simply had to discover the meaning of this puzzling letter. He pleaded with his wife and sister to let him go. He showed them the letter, and they agreed that the hand was indeed identical to his own, though this seemed to worry Jean more than intrigue her. "Whoever wrote this letter has obviously studied you closely, or at least your handwriting. Honestly, Arthur, I'm not sure it's the wisest idea to go racing off to Glasgow to meet a gang of total strangers," she pleaded. Her sister agreed. "You could be racing to your doom when you should be racing to tell the police." "Oh, for goodness sakes, you two, you're like a pair of old ladies jumping at shadows. It's probably just a bit of harmless fun. I have no doubt I'll be back again tomorrow, and I will be sure to notify the police the instant I think something is amiss," Sir Arthur assured them. In the end, they knew they couldn't refuse him, in part because he would do what he wanted, as he always did. They did, however, insist that he have his lunch first. He couldn't go running off on an adventure on an empty stomach. With lunch delaying his departure, it was just past 3 o'clock in the afternoon by the time he arrived at Waverley Station. He paced the station forecourt, bought a newspaper from a newsstand which he folded and placed under his arm. It would give him something to read on the journey. Finally, he boarded the 3:30 service to Glasgow and spent the journey reading every article and advert the afternoon edition of the Scotsman newspaper had to offer. It was full of the usual claptrap, nothing really of interest at all except for one small snippet, which filled one column of the huge broadsheet. It was a report about the ongoing investigation of the brutal murder of an old lady in Glasgow and the subsequent search for her missing diamond brooch. Pawnbrokers and jewellers were asked to be on their guard and contact the Glasgow police immediately if such an item came in one of their shops. The old lady's murder was no mystery. It seemed obvious to him that the motive was the valuable item of jewellery. He thought for the briefest moment that the murder and the missing jewel might be connected to the mysterious letter. But it couldn't have been. The letter was dated and postmarked the afternoon of the 23rd of December, and the murder had not occurred until that evening. An hour or so later he arrived in Glasgow and began heading for the Panopticon. As he marched along Argyle Street, he suddenly felt a creeping sense of apprehension. Were his wife and sister right to be concerned? Was he indeed marching towards his doom? Was his love of intrigue about to bring about? Was his love of intrigue about to bring his end? He shook his head as if to shake off his anxiety, straightened his back, lengthened his stride, and continued to his destination. A few minutes later, he was at the front doors of the Panopticon. He bought a twopence ticket from the lady in the ticket booth and followed the signs that directed him to Noah's Ark. Here he would either find a gang of boys or confirmation of his wife and sister's fears. Way he would find some kind of answer to the origin of an intriguing letter.